From Santa Barbara, California, the Timeless Voyager series, where the knowledge is timeless and you are the Voyager. Interviews with leading-edge authors and speakers, psychic phenomena and the unexplained, UFOs, extraterrestrial encounters, government cover-ups, alternative healthcare, new technologies. Fasten your cosmic seatbelts and join me, your host, Bruce Stephen Holmes, the Timeless Voyager. Hello, everyone. Bruce Stephen Holmes for Timeless Voyager. How would you like to improve your communication skills, be more creative, develop psychic gifts that you may or may not even know you have, improve your health, and even improve your belief systems? Well, today's guest, Dr. Jennifer Freed, has more than 30 years' experience as a depth psychologist. I don't know what that means, and I'm going to ask her. Social emotional trainer, astrologer, and she's the author of 10 books relating to personal growth. She explains how your astrological birth chart can point you to the life you want and offers self-assessments to pinpoint your most effective strategies. I wish I had known someone like her when I first got involved in all of these things. In her recent book, A Map to Your Soul, she will help answer those questions. Now, on her website, and what a beautiful website it is, folks, Jennifer says, discover your cosmic DNA, awaken your highest potential, deepen your relationships, your impact, and your daily joy. Dr. Jennifer Freed, welcome to Timeless Voyager.
I love the title of your show because I think that's what drives us all that are interested in something beyond the ego, which is a timeless voyage.
Thank you. That was well said. I appreciate that. Well, for those of you who are watching or listening, I thought that we could start out a little bit by talking about some of these books that Jennifer has authored, and I don't know which ones you like to start with, but you saw what I have up here. What would you think of? I have.
Well, Peace Q, let's start with that one.
Great. Okay.
So I wrote this book because my partner Rendy and I started a nonprofit called AHA in 1999, dedicated to raising up the emotional and social intelligence of teachers, parents, and teenagers. And somewhere in the midst of those years of that nonprofit, we created a program called the Peace Builders Program, which is still going strong in Santa Barbara. And at the time, we were constantly developing curriculum for the teenagers, teachers, and parents. And I thought it would be a great idea to have it in a book. So I invented this idea, Peace Q, Peace Intelligence Quota. And the book is really dedicated to helping people find peace within, peace between us, and peace among us. And oh my gosh, has this book become more relevant as we see that so many people are harmed by violence and war and aggression. And my fondest desire is to really change this place on earth from one of violence and harm to one of peace. So the book is a very practical, instructional guide on how to develop that for yourself and with others.
Great. How about another one?
Okay, let's go to compassion. So this is a workbook, Empowering Yourself with Emotional Intelligence. One of the most important things we need to do to develop compassion is stop othering people. As you know very well, Bruce, dedicated to what you are dedicated to, until we know that we're in a unified field and that we're all humans and we all deserve dignity and respect, we can't really change the earth to be something that belongs to everyone and everyone's basic needs are met. So we have to start with compassion for ourselves, compassion for others. Again, it's a workbook for people to really examine their level of compassion and how to expand it.
All right. What about what's next?
Use your planets wisely.
I love that title. I really do. I think that's a great title.
Well, that's good that you love it, because my publisher didn't love it so much and I had to fight to keep it. The Sounds True published this 2 years ago in 2020. It's my first explicitly depth psychology astrology book. So what do we mean by that? Depth psychology is the practice of deciphering the dreams and the unconscious and realizing that we all come in with shadow and light. And this astrology book is really like a textbook to look at your own astrology chart in depth and learn to realize that in every moment we're either acting from a fearful reptilian brain place, a functioning place, or a really remarkable evolving place. And the book goes through your chart. Once you have it, you can get it for free online. You can look through this book and learn just so much about your potential and about how to use your planets wisely. We all have a birth chart with the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Chiron, Neptune, and Pluto. And the book takes us through what does that mean and how do we evolve with our own cosmic DNA, which is what you're born with is your cosmic DNA. What you do with it is your free will.
All right. How about this? How about relationships?
Oh, yes. Well, Relationship Wisdom is a book that's dedicated to making sure that we have healthy sexuality and self-respect, no matter what gender you are or what identity you have. It's so important that we consider this sacred vessel as sovereign when we make decisions about sexuality, sex, relationships. This is, again, a workbook for people to really examine their beliefs and their structures around sex and around sexual behavior and relationships so that they make wise, informed choices instead of culturally mandated or reactive choices. So we want people to really make sure the relationship choices they make are knowledge-based and not in some kind of distortion.
All right. And then I guess finally we're talking about a map to your soul.
Yes. So this is my latest book. It just came out in October. And Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop and Random House published it. It's doing very, very well. And this book is for anybody that likes astrology or doesn't even care about astrology, but wants a fully expressed life. So this book covers 12 areas of your life and how to bring maximum expression to each of those areas for your own development. But also my contention is if you maximize your own expression, you will naturally spill over to helping other people.
All right. Well, let's talk in more detail now, because a map to your soul is probably isn't really telling the whole story. It's a great little catch, but I went ahead and I'll just show you something I put up here just for the sake of having this available, because you talked about the idea of the four basic elements.
Elements, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the elements. I don't know if this
Yeah,
chart
that's
is
great.
helpful or
It
not.
does. It does. Yes, totally. So as you've wonderfully put up, this is an astrology wheel. Everybody has a chart and everybody has all 12 signs in their chart. And those signs each have an elemental quality. So Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius are what we call fire signs. And they are expressed through dynamic, bold, fiery physical energy. Then we have the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And this is about loyalty, stability, steadiness, service, conservation. Then we have the three air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And the air signs are about perspective, vision, openness, inspiration, breath. Then we have the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And these are about the feeling nature, compassion, forgiveness, mercy, empathy. And this makes up the whole mandala of the astrological wheel. And in order for us to be fully expressed, we need to access all four elements. That's the whole premise of the book.
That's interesting. When I first looked at it, I was wondering. I mean, I understand those concepts, but I was wondering how you were going to kind of use that to explain the premise that you have in your book, and maybe it's time to go there.
Well, here's the bottom line. We are all made up of these four elements, but all of us, you and I, and maybe you could talk about you, I think people would be interested. So lean into one element more than the other. We just do. It's by the nature of how we were born and what we were born with. But let's say for me, I lean really into fire and air. Well, that's beautiful. I've got a lot of passion, a lot of ideas, but I'm not always as gifted in grounding and stability and particularity or feeling. And to the degree I'm out of balance, that causes me and others problems. So, what about you? Which elements do you think?
Well, I just happened to. I brought along my chart today, my natal
Yeah.
chart.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put it up here, and I
Mm-hmm.
will bare myself to the rest of the people that are watching.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me.
Well, you start off with a ton of earth, that's for sure. Um, so you've got a good spread here, but the predominant thing is, well, you're kind of equal, but a lot of air and yeah, a lot of air and earth. So that would mean the thing you're lowest on in the chart by far is water.
Hmm.
So, how does feeling show up in your life? Like, that's how I would look at it. How
Yeah,
does a lot of feeling show up in your life? Who carries all the feelings for you? Just curious.
I would say that my wife does.
Exactly, because that's what happens. That's the whole point of my book. To the degree we don't own something, it shows up in the people that we love, either good or bad. But if you were to become more tender and more revealing and more vulnerable and more in touch with your feelings, this would balance you out and take some of the burden off of your wife.
Hmm.
That's how that works.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I always tell people, well, I don't want. I think I should maybe leave you because you're going in a direction that's important to me, and obviously you can tell already that feelings are like really like low in the spectrum.
Uncomfortable. Yeah, they're uncomfortable. And so that becomes a place for you to do a workout. Just like if, as we get older, I've been told that we need to do more upper body exercise because our shoulders tend to cave in and all of that.
Mhm.
Well, I've started doing that because I want to be physically healthy. And I'm saying on a soul level, if you want to be emotionally healthy, you have to develop the water part of your psyche in your life in order for you to be more in balance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I have been recently at least I had kind of changed books that I read. I don't want to go into a whole thing here, but Many, many years ago, back in the early 70s, I began reading Ouspensky and Gurdjieff. And
Yeah, there, that goes great with air.
of course,
Yeah.
however, so that's something I've been doing along the lines for years and years and years, but not as much as I should have been. Recently, within the last couple of years, I began rereading all of it, especially In Search of the Miraculous and a few of the other books.
Mhm.
But I began to realize that for me,
Mhm.
and I don't like making these shows about me, but in this particular
No,
case,
I want to hear about you. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if the rest of the people do.
No, I think they do. I think you're a good example because we can use you as what I'm talking about in my
Okay.
book, because those people are philosophers. That's mental, that's air. So keep going.
Well, I had always known and acted this particular way, which is as an air sign, I spend all of my time thinking about, but am I actually doing anything about the issues? And so for about maybe the last 3 or 4 years, I began using the Fourth Way book.
Mhm.
And instead of just reading it and saying how interesting that was and how much I
Mhm.
could philosophize over it, I began putting into practice things like external consideration, internal consideration. Those I know are terms that a lot of people are not familiar with, but just to be quick on those two. External consideration is how are you considering the feelings, the needs, and the important issues of the person or persons that you're speaking to
Mhm.
or communicating with at the moment
Mhm.
versus internal consideration, which is are you considering only your issues and
Mhm.
then projecting them into them and not having any communication at all with what they need? Well,
Mm.
I noticed that one of the things that I did on a regular basis was I was very strong on internal considering, which is I always made sure that I knew what I was feeling, what I need to know, what how it was affecting me, and I was not at all even thinking about the other person. And as a result, I had been a certain type of personality for a long period of time. So that's what I've been doing lately, just to talk about the idea of emotional issues and
Well, that
considering.
is the best example ever of shifting from the mind to the heart, taking knowledge and putting it into an empathy practice. That is water. And so you use this incredible tool to then challenge yourself to move into your heart instead of just in your own brain, which is very mental. That's a great example.
Well, thank you. So that's one of the things I've been doing lately, and so it's funny that I would know. I don't know. I would somehow feel or know that you were a good person for me to talk to, and in the
Well,
guise of
again,
the show.
here's the thing, and this is where astrology is very helpful. When you see that you preference air as an element, I do too, you do, that's not bad. It's a strength. You have an incredible mind. I have an incredible mind. I have idea euphoria. I love my mind. Great. It's not the end, it's the beginning of exploration. And notice that mental people are drawn more to mental activities. When, to balance ourselves out, cardio is good, working out is good, bringing the energy out of the mind into the body and letting it metabolize. So, these are the strategies I talk about in the book in 12 different areas. So I want to outline the areas in the book. And then
Great.
please, I want to tell people that are watching or listening, go to jenniferfreed.com, pick a bookseller to buy the book through there, and then come back and give your receipt, and you'll get over $100 of other free books. It's a really great thing right now. So
Fantastic.
jenniferfreed.com.
Yeah, here let me show people that while we're talking so they can
Okay.
see that.
So the 12 different areas that the book explores, and there's really good practical exercises on each area, is self-presentation, values and resources, communication, home and the feeling in your home, creativity and romantic love, health habits, partnership and support languages, sex, travel inside and out in your belief systems, career and legacy, kinship, the sacred crew, and spirituality and psychic abilities. All those 12 areas are covered with very accessible, practical exercises. And you can do it alone. You can do it with a friend, partner, family. It's meant to be useful.
Yeah, and that's very important that you bring that up about the partner or the friend or the family or whatever people are going to put around them, because too often people think that they can just isolate themselves, read a book, do these things on their own, and what they don't realize, and of course I want to be careful about how I say this, but what they're not realizing is that you're not the best judge of what you are learning or trying to learn or what you're doing, and you need to have someone on the outside say, no, 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 that's not the way it is, this is how you really are, and then you can start to put those things together, or at least that's my experience.
Well, I have a good story about that. So I've been with my partner Rendy for 26 years, and love of my life. We're doing great. And about 9 years ago, we saw online there was this test about your self-awareness. And I was so confident I'm going to ace this test about self-awareness. And she's much more humble than me. And she went, I'll take it too. And then it turns out I scored really low on self-awareness and she scored really high. And forevermore, we laugh about that. To your point, if I'm in my own bubble, I thought I was really self-aware. And she was just being humble, like, yeah, we'll see. And sure enough, I scored really low. And then I could laugh at myself. And we talk about it sometimes when I'm delusional about whatever. And she'll go, remember the self-awareness test? So we need loving mirrors, and loving mirrors are people that will highlight our strengths and really call upon them and recognize them. But they'll also say, Jennifer, are you cuckoo right now? I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have those great people in my life, and it's what I call the sacred crew, which I believe, astrologically speaking, this is going to be the essential ingredient for happiness from 2023 on, is having a sacred crew.
Oh, yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I agree in so many ways that I have to be careful that I'm just not sitting here like a yes man or something. But yeah, it is really, really important to have this um, reflection, and it just doesn't have to be people that you live with. The whole world is
No.
a reflection. Everything that's
Yeah.
happening out there. Matter of fact, I find I have more of a problem uh, with certain situations that really reflect all the things that are wrong with me at the moment. And yet there it is. And I know I recognize them now. I didn't always recognize them, but they are there. So the world really is the teacher or a teacher.
Yeah. Well, wherever you are activated out of a peaceful heart, there's your mirror. I mean,
Yes.
where,
Now, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, you please.
All right. So, how, I'm thinking about the book now, Use Your Planets Wisely. This must be part of this information that you're imparting right now.
Yes. Well, for example, you're an Aquarius, I'm an Aquarius sun. In the book, it will take you through what the sun means in the chart, which is your basic energy, your basic ego, your basic identity. We'll talk about that. And then it will say sun through the signs. So you can now decide, oh, I'm a sun in Aquarius or I'm a sun in Aries. Sun in Aquarius, if you're in what's called the primitive state of sun in Aquarius, that means the reactive, fear-based, regress state. Sun in Aquarius people can be cold and arrogant and distant and absolutely full of their own self-affirming ideas and not very connected to anyone else. That's primitive. When we're functioning, the adaptive state, I call it in the book, Sun in Aquarius, we're really good networkers of the community. We do shows like what you're doing. We bring people together. We're visionary. We're open-minded. We're accepting. That's a beautiful adaptive version of Sun in Aquarius. When we are evolving, which is hardly ever, by the way, but we're reaching for this, a Sun in Aquarius lays down their life on behalf of community. There is no more egoic attachment to look at me or see me. It's how can I become a pathway for the community to rise? So there's these three levels, and the book goes through each planet through your sign and then describes a way to upgrade the way that you're behaving through that energy.
There were so many books here that I wasn't able to really get involved
Yeah,
with
well, it's a
reading them.
lot.
Tell me a little bit about the creative book. This
Oh,
one,
the creative, sure. Okay.
creative
Well,
expression.
I again, a personal story. I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet that I was raised by a mother and a father where I never had a critic around my creativity. I have absolutely uninhibited, non-perfectionistic, free-flowing creativity. Luckiest person on the planet. Mostly the teens, parents, educators, people I've worked with have all kinds of hangups around creativity, to the point where many people have said to me, I'm just not that creative.
Hmm.
Well, it's very much like if you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing. What I believe is if you exist, you're creative. It's just what are you doing with that creative energy? So this creative book is a workbook to help people access a million different ways to be creative. Part of the problem that we have now in this culture is people think creativity has to lead to money or fame. And so they don't even begin. Like, I can't be J-Lo or I can't be whatever, so I'm not even going to do this. And we forget that creativity is crea, it's life force. It's like when we're creating, whether we're baking a cake or writing a poem or drawing a drawing, it's life coming through us. Why would we dare shut that off? Because it's not going to be monetized. That's ridiculous. So that whole workbook is about just play, just get creative again. Tonight is the full moon in Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. It's an air sign. So what is the very best thing to do tonight? Burn all your resentments in a little fire, a safe fire, light them up, burn them, and decide what you want to be full of. What do you actually want to be full of and bring to the world in your fullness? The qualities you want to emanate. And that is a great thing to do on a full moon.
One of the things that I really enjoy about astrology, and you're definitely probably the right person to comment on it, and that is that people think, or not everybody, but most people think that those planets out there are just lumps of dirt or whatever they're made out of, that they're nothing else. And I've been a long supporter of the idea that these planets out there are, and this is not an original idea, it's just that I buy into it, but they have emotions, they have intelligence, they are real entities, not like in the mythology that even the word mythology is not fair, I don't think. But what I think people don't understand is if you look at it that way, then it is not hard to understand that because of their size and their positions, they have tremendous influence on the uh, individual and the culture and the entire planet. And our egos are so out of control that we don't even really have the possibility of believing that thing, much less accepting it. And so I just wondering what your comment might be on that.
Well, I think if anybody looked at us right now from thousands and millions of light years away, they would think that we're non entities and we don't matter and who cares. But I think the fact is we are in a universe of saturated meaning. There's cycles, there's things beyond our knowing, but there is such clear evidence that everything's related. Quantum physics, everything's related. And one of the best proofs of that for any cynic is somebody got a virus in China and it changed the entire world. Like, we are interconnected. And take that on the cosmic level. There is a movement of a planet, and the whole world is in response to that movement. We're all and everything connected.
Yeah, and so that's why it's seen. Sometimes I think, and I started out. This will be, I think, it's an interesting story. I'll tell it. When my wife and I met, we were in college, and she liked astrology, and I thought astrology was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever come across. But I was dating her, so I would be careful about what I would say. Finally, um, somewhere around after 5 years, we'd gotten married, and we went through this thing once in a while about astrology. And finally, she said, "Tell you what I'm going to do." She said, "I met this woman at this class, and she was teaching the class in New York." She said, "I'm going to give you a natal chart." So I said, "Okay, great. Thank you very
No,
much.
why not? Yeah.
I'll look at it." Well, here was the shock of all shocks. After reading this chart and all this information, I realized that my entire life was right there on a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
thought my life was
astonishing.
so special. I
Yeah.
thought I was making so many important decisions, excuse me, on my own. It it was absolutely incredible. That was and the experience turned me around completely. Obviously, I went and took the class, then I started learning about these things, and that was like the opening of an entire area that had been wasn't even there wasn't even an area I had
But
no
I
use for anything. Go ahead.
I think your story really illustrates a shift that we all need to make, which is you were special, embedded in a cosmic divine orchestration. You weren't special, exceptional. This is the big shift we have to make.
Hmm.
None of us are exceptions. We're all part of a really big cosmic dance. And so you went from, I'm determining my own destiny, I'm the solitary ego making this all up as I go, to, oh, I'm an instrument of the divine. What a better specialness to be.
I can't even respond, but thank you for saying that. And so tell me a little bit about, or if you'd like to, what was your background? Because I noticed, for example, you referred to, and I want to just read this correctly. You call yourself a depth psychologist, and I think when I was
Mhm.
opening up, I said, I don't know what that is. What does that mean?
Well, specifically, I got my PhD at Pacifica in depth psychology. And the depth psychologists, formally speaking, were Carl Jung and Freud and their descendants. And they basically were the first psychological professionals to talk about the mysteries of the soul and the unconscious. Not everything was what you saw. There were definite energies behind the scenes, if you will,
Mhm.
that motivate us and plague us and haunt us and enchant us and all of that. So it's just, and my educational background is studying dreams and is studying complexes and patterns that are below the surface. And that's why astrology fits perfectly too, because it's showing a map of your soul, like what happened to you, whether or not you want to examine it or not. There it is. The patterns you're born with, the opportunities you're born with, the karma you came in with, that kind of thing. So that's my fascination.
Well, I had never come across that term before, so I knew I wanted to find out what that
Well,
meant.
that's basically Carl Jung and everyone after him that believed in the unconscious and the dream life and
Mhm.
magic and all kinds of things that up till then people were denying or trying to make into the kind of witchy shadow.
You know, it's interesting. For some reason, I've gotten so personal on the show, which I usually don't. I usually hang out on
I'm
the
really
side.
happy you are.
But oh, thanks. So what I was going to say was that when when I had this quote unquote unveiling of the mysteries of life, or what appeared to be mysteries, and spent a great deal of time in Europe. About actually for about 6 months, I was with my wife, and actually were with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and
Oh, great.
we became TM teachers and went all over the world
Great.
teaching TM and all that stuff, and we still do that program. Not that there aren't other forms, but that's just
Yeah,
what
but
we.
that's a good one. Yeah.
But where I'm going with that is that um, there's an interest, I think, uh, especially with, I would assume, air signs. Well, that's quite an assumption I'm making, but there might be an
Go
interest.
ahead.
Let's say it that way
Yes. Yes.
in this miraculous, the miraculous world. Matter of fact, one of the books I've been reading by Ouspensky is In Search of the Miraculous, which was his journey to finally spend all of his time with Gurdjieff. Um, the reason I'm talking about this is that it's not for everyone, and I'm always careful about that because I don't want to be too preachy.
Right.
And there's a reason why it's not for everyone. And that's not because some people are the winners and some people are the losers and all that kind of stuff. But we have to have a balance of functionality, I guess, on the planet. And so there's a place, I guess, kind of like the story of the 12. There was the philosopher. Now, not all 12 people on the boat were philosophers. Just
Exactly.
one of the 12 was a philosopher. There were other people that were very important, and I'm not going to go through the whole story. But the point is that we do need to have all of these different aspects so that we can have a full life. I think a life that is good for everyone, not just the
Mhm.
person who wants to. Well, as an Aquarius, oh, you know.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's a lot of talk about diversity, but this is another level of diversity. Not everybody needs to carry the same mission or the same purpose. It would really wreck everything. I mean, there's the miracle seekers, there's the gardeners, they're the heart centered people that keep us all feeling warm and safe. We have really different capacities, and I think it's very important that we don't want or try to make anybody in our own image.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this book. I know that we touched on it, but I love the title. Use your planets wisely. Tell me a little bit about maybe some underlying issues that are in that book that I probably I didn't get a chance to look at it, but I was
Well,
assuming
yeah.
certain things. The one thing I was assuming was you say use your planets wisely. Does that mean that you can take a situation which an astrologer might say, "Oh, you have a square, and this is what that means. Squares are just some." And I'll stop and let you continue. So, go ahead.
Well, you hear a lot like, oh, you're a Scorpio, stay away, you're doomed, whatever, because Scorpio is in a water intense sign. The whole book is about you keep deciding in every moment and every day how you're going to use the energy that you've been given through these planetary archetypes. So let's just take Mars. If your Mars is in Pisces, that for many astrologers in the old days would say that's really a bad place for Mars to be. Mars is going to be in its detriment in Pisces, and you will have a really hard time with your body and with sex and with getting things done because you're going to be so just wimpy. Well, we've learned that if you have Mars in Pisces and you use that planet wisely, you can become the best bodhisattva of kick-ass compassion that ever walked with extremely clear boundaries. That's just an example. The whole book takes you through, you have this planet in this sign. This is how to use it wisely as opposed to let it run you in a kind of prescriptive negative way.
Perfect. And that was what I was assuming. And I wanted to say, yeah. So you can make use. See, a lot of people, I think, or at least people I've come across, don't like astrology because they don't like the Saturday morning news that runs, the 12 signs. They don't even know the difference between a rising sign and so
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So when they see exactly what you're talking about, maybe not Mars, but I mean things like, Tauruses, they're so, fixed and they can't make any decisions. They lose sight of all the other things that Taurus can do. So I was just thinking to myself when I looked at the title, I said, "Oh, this is going to be a great book. I've got to get it. Um, I want to learn about the alternate possibilities. Even though I know a little bit about it, I'm certainly not as educated as you are in astrology."
Maybe you are. I can tell you that my friends Jenna and Nicholas used my book to completely help their marriage understanding. Because when you both look at it and start to see, oh, we have these choices, then you can appreciate the other's struggle, but also encourage each other to bring out those better sides, those better angels of whatever the planetary position is. So I am very hopeful that with free will, we actually participate with the planets in terms of how we architect our lives.
That's a great term, participate.
Yeah.
And be part of it. Be part of it,
Yeah.
as opposed to looking at it as they're out there. I'm here. What I'm doing is important. That's
No,
thing. Yeah,
it's a collaboration. And I never, for myself or anyone else, let them get away with saying, oh, Saturn made me do that, or I can't help it. I'm like a moon in Cancer. It's like, no, that's not an excuse. Sorry. The planets don't make us do a thing. We're in a collaboration, and just like any collaboration, there's input, there's response, there's input, there's response. It's a beautiful synergy between these cosmic energies and our own volition.
all right. Well, I promised you that we would be very careful about the time today, and I appreciate
Good. That's
everything that
excellent.
I no, I really do appreciate the fact that you took time to be on the show. And I wonder if you have a few things that you might want to say to the viewers at this moment as we kind of wrap it up.
Well, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to your lifetimes of service, Bruce, to the divine of your knowing and to make such good content for people. I think that's a real contribution. So I'm always very happy when I see people taking their talents and making good things. So thank you for that. As for me, I'm passionate about peace on earth and people really feeling filled with their own gifts and contributions. And that's why I write. And I hope people will come to jenniferfreed.com and see all the different possible things you can get there, but also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Jennifer Freed, because I do a lot of teaching and offering through Instagram about astrology and psychology and spirituality. So those are the things I want to leave you with.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. I would love to do this again sometime, knowing more about what you talk about and how you act. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. So thank you again.
Okay, well, Aquarius's rule. Just kidding. Take
All right.
care.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
And thank you all for listening to the Timeless Voyager series. My name is Bruce Stephen Holmes, and I hope that your own personal voyage through life towards the development of your highest potential is a joyous and successful one.
See the